May 25, 2017. The game, Last Day on Earth Survival, a zombie survival game, would be released. During its infancy, the game would build a solid community. A community that would be excited for almost every update added to the game. The year now is 2023, and Last Day on Earth has more than 100 million downloads in the Play Store. And for these last 6 years, the game has gone through plenty of updates, some small patches, while others game-changing. Although the community has stayed strong and active through these years, it has certainly decreased since LDOE's release. So, it begs the question, as a zombie survival video game, what state is Last Day on Earth in? As someone who has played the game for 3 years, I would like to run down the long history of LDOE, its game-changing updates, and its major changes, while also giving my thoughts on the game, and answering. Is LDOE still a good game? What caused its success and downfall? And what will be Last Day on Earth's future? This is the rise and fall of Last Day on Earth. In 2017, Last Day on Earth would start off small by releasing quality-of-life updates and patches bit by bit. Updates such as a larger inventory, more weapons, the chopper, new locations, and special events. Special events would also include seasonal events such as Halloween, Christmas, Chinese New Year, etc. These events would of course change seasonally, giving different tasks, different storylines, and most importantly different rewards, which would make players compare these holiday events to past years. Like how 2017's Christmas event gave a buff to players while 2018 did not. From version 1.7 to version 1.10.3. The game would then add raids, Crooked Creek Farm, the police station as an event which would later be permanent, the motel, and the gas station, all added to the game respectively in the year of 2018. These locations would help with the game's longevity by providing new challenges and new loot. Aside from new locations, dogs, turrets, weapon mods, the destroyed convoy, and the infected forest alongside the witch would be added to the game in the year of 2018 alone. At this point, the community was very happy and hyped with all the updates that the game was receiving. However, one feature that would surprise the entire community was Sector 7. Sector 7 would be the most critical feature added to the game in the year 2018. In version 1.8, Sector 7 would be released. First called Wall Sector 7. It would be the very first feature that includes multiplayer in Last Day on Earth, which made the entire LDOE player base excited for the game. Players could gain a buff by completing tasks such as studying anomalies and could also join clans in version 1.10.2. In Sector 7's early days, players would experience lag due to the amount of people joining in the location. However, this wouldn't stop the community from having fun and interacting with each other for the first time in-game. Sector 7 would then get massive changes in versions 1.11.7 to 1.14.5, with the most notable being the new tasks such as destroying cocoons, improving clans, more rewards, new zones, new enemies, and a name change from Wall Sector 7 to Camp Sector 7. Two of the new enemies that were added would be the Miner and the Devourer. The Miner could be found in the new zone added, which was the Old Mines. It would have a new zombie model and have a similar size to the Big One and the Blind One. The Devourer could be found in the new zone called the Container. It would have the same model as the Toxic Abomination, however, it can spit toxic liquid in a large AoE, and ground attack like a floater bloater, and also has a large AoE. Because of the many updates the game was receiving in 2018, the hype started to skyrocket for Last Day on Earth. However, huge updates were still yet to happen. In the first half of the year 2019, the game would add a lot of small, yet significant features. This includes the changing of the character level system, removing old character skills and replacing them with new ones, such as the burglar skill. To entice players to travel to green, yellow, and red zones. The devs would add basements to the game. The devs would add grenades, the mercenaries' camp as a temporary location, and huskies. After the second-year anniversary of LDOE, Kafir would release a teaser trailer for Season 1 which would release in version 1.14. Seasons 1 to 4 were released from early August to December with a season pass and a different storyline and locations to each season, but this will disappear once the season has ended. Season 1 gave the wrecked ship event and teased the helicopter in a boss fight against Charlie Sr. Season 2 had the Survivor Camp event, it added Kevlar armor, and the harpoon to the game as well. Season 3 would be an update that really stood out to many, as it brought a newer version of Bunker Bravo, swamp locations which are permanent locations, and most importantly fishing. I mean the ATV. Season 3 also added a limited-time event called Defense of Fort Moss. An event where you would have to build a base and defend it from hordes of zombies. Because Season 3 was a huge update providing permanent content, a lot of players hopped back on the LDOE hype train. For Season 4, it would just be a limited-time Christmas event, bringing in limited-time locations like Nick Sandy's house and other Christmas locations. By the end of the year 2019, a lot of players had mixed opinions about these season updates because most content from seasons are only limited-time events. Therefore, after a season update's duration is done, most content released from the season update will disappear, unless it is permanent content. The hype would soon die down for LDOE. Because of the seasons, the updates also began to slow down. Every update would be released monthly now, compared to the weekly updates beforehand. While others would drop the game at the time, plenty still had hope that the game would add more permanent content down the road. Others would be expecting that the helicopter and Bunker Charlie would be added to the game very soon because of Season 1 storyline as it teased the helicopter and Bunker Charlie by adding both Charlie Jr. and Charlie Sr. to the Season 1 storyline. As 2020 started, seasons would become a normality in LDOE as most seasons from this year were either hit or miss, but nothing game-changing. However, these hit or miss seasons weren't that detrimental to the game. As the pandemic started, people would be stuck in their houses, and with nothing to do, some would play LDOE to pass the time. Season 5 was a sort of continuation to Season 4. It gave daily tasks like collecting samples of blood, teeth by killing bosses, and finding posters in exchange for rewards. Season 6 introduced a sewers function and limited-time settlement event alongside new fish called the trout. Season 7 had the limited-time prison event where players can raid a prison to steal crates for patches in either stealth mode or assault mode. These patches can be exchanged for reward boxes. The devs would also change the way healing works with food. The healing would no longer be instant, instead it would take a few seconds. Season 8 gave the fair location to celebrate the 3rd anniversary of the game. They also added a tournament feature for Season 8, where the player plays against bots to get a higher standing in the leaderboard for better rewards. As Sector 7 was removed from the game, right before Season 6, the crater would replace it in the same update. In version 1.16.3 the crater would be the new Sector 7, and unlike Sector 7, the crater would bring in a second character and separate single-player from multiplayer entirely. Season 9 was more focused on the crater. During Season 9, players would be able to sell their items to other players in the trading district. The update added workbenches, business levels, and tournaments. Season 10 was the hunting season update. Players were tasked to complete contracts by capturing special zombies using nets to gain reputation and progress through the season pass. A straightforward season. In Season 11, reward crates to tournaments, skins, the chopper, and a lot of packs in the shop were added to the crater. This was by far one of the weakest updates that was added to LDOE. It only added small features despite being a season update. Season 12 was the Halloween update. This update added the Genesis mobile base, Spooky Farm, and Festival Ground. In the GMB, players would be able to send packages. By sending packages, players could earn points to progress through the season pass. However, the packages require special items and crates. Players can obtain special items from the Spooky Farm and Festival Ground or find these goods in the green, yellow, and red zones. As for crates, these could be purchased from an NPC named Franklin for Genesis stripes which could be obtained from just killing zombies. It has been more than a year since the game has gotten any permanent content. The last time, it was in the form of Bunker Bravo and the Swamp. And no, the crater does not count as permanent content. Players of LDOE have been waiting for an update like this for over a year. 9 seasons have passed and players have been asking for more permanent content in the game. On December 23, 2020, version 1.17.6 released a permanent location, the port. This update would also release a new vehicle, called the motorboat and permanent island locations. Although Season 12 ended, deliveries stayed permanently at the port location. Season 13 would be Christmas season introducing the limited-timed events, the Strange Factory and Icewind Valley. Players were given daily tasks like finding letters, fighting bosses and zombie waves in the Strange Factory. After the Christmas season, players would have to wait for over a month before the release of the next season update. On March 12, 2021, the laboratory would be added alongside Season 14 to the game, giving more content to cover in the port. Players had to complete quests from an NPC named Eva for season points. Season points could also be collected from special deliveries, and killing zombies to gain points to progress through the antidote tab. The laboratory would have 3 floors. First floor is the lobby, the second floor are the A and B sectors, and the third floor has the trolley that can't be completed at the moment as processors are not in the game yet. Although the laboratory was permanent content, it doesn't necessarily make it already good. The lab wasn't well received by the community as it needed a huge amount of guns to clear it, and the rewards were just not worth it. Season 15 introduced the Last Stop Bar event for the 4th year anniversary of LDOE. The update also added outfits to the game and a new supply cargo event. Players could progress through the season pass by completing investigations and going through the storyline of the event. Season 16 added the Harvest event. This event would have 3 trials where players can fight waves of zombies for 3 rounds each trial, where rewards get better. By completing these trials, players would also be able to gain points in the second tab of the season pass, which included new rewards such as the warehouse and the fridge. The warehouse and fridge were new storage items. The warehouse could store resources like wood and stone, while the fridge could store food and water up to 300 items per slot. Season 17 was the Echo 1 extraction update. It brought a limited-time Echo 1 location. To best describe Season 17, think of it as a mini version of Defense of Fort Moss. In Echo 1, players needed minerals to start a wave and must protect extractors from zombies to get special alloys which could be exchanged for crates. Players could set up defenses by deploying turrets and walls before the wave. Mercenaries could also aid the player. Season 18 is like a combination of Season 13 and Season 15. The investigation board is back and the boss rooms were still in the strange factory. This time players needed to find Nick Santi through the storyline. To progress through the Presence tab, players needed to earn Holly, which was basically the supply event from Season 15. Season 19 would introduce the event calendar. It would have various new events and returning nerfed events such as Lunar New Year, Weekend Rush, Bunker Alpha, Laboratory, and Bunker Bravo, Daily Bonus, Supply, Collector, and finally the Wrecked Ship. Seasons 20 to 22 would be similar to Season 19, but with the addition of more and new events including the events from Season 19. Here are the additional events. Arena, Fishing Tournament, Weekend, Farm, Big Hunt, Leprechaun's Luck, Workshop, Commune, Cook, Test Your Luck, Handyman, and the Woodworker event. Season 23 had the limited time Crossways event and Ceasefire Fest for the 5th year anniversary of LDOE alongside the calendar events. However, in Season 24, the events would be reverted back to the same calendar events. In Season 25, Axe would be introduced as a sort of permanent storyline for the game. It would include quests to other locations such as Bunker Alpha, to help new players who just started the game. In between Season 26 and 27, the settlement would be added to the game, permanently as a second base for players, and not to be confused with the settlement back in Season 6. In here players can recruit mercenaries, and launch expeditions with them. Act 2 would also be added to the game in this update. Act 2 would involve quests related to the settlement. From Season 28 to Season 33, the same calendar events would occur over and over again while adding some quality of life updates to the settlement and acts within those season updates. Now you might be wondering, these are pretty good events and updates, so why call the year 2022 the downfall of LDOE? Well, first off, the updates would be very repetitive with having the same events happen every season, making the game pretty boring to play real fast. Second, the calendar events didn't bring anything special to the game, apart from the Lunar New Year, Arena, and Big Hunt events. Most events would just be quests that you would need to complete to gain excellence points. Lastly, none of the updates provided any permanent content apart from the settlement. Season 34 starts the year off featuring the Lunar New Year event again, while Seasons 35 and 36 had nothing special to offer. In version 1.20.3, developers would remove Marks of Excellence which can be exchanged for the reward crate in the Season Pass. In version 1.20.4 for Season 37 the Forlorn Fair event would be added and would appear again in version 1.20.7 for the 6th year anniversary of LDOE. Season 38 would just be the same calendar events. Many have lost hope in the game at this point and have gotten tired of the repetitiveness of LDOE and causing some to drop the game. On May 3, 2023, LDOE would finally get a new permanent location and more permanent content in the form of the transport hub along with the drone. 2 new bosses would be added to the game, the Butcher, and the Miner, this time for single player. The devs would also later on add a new breed of dog called the Rottweiler. Then on August 16, 2023, the devs would release a long-awaited weapon, the Dragunov in the Survivor's Path update. They would also remove the axe feature, replacing it with a whole new game tutorial system. That is the full 6 years of history of Last Day on Earth, survival. So, if we want to get an answer to these questions, we should first talk about the points where the game succeeded and the points where it failed. I have 3 reasons why LDOE received so much hype and love from the community. As I mentioned earlier in the video, many players consider the years 2017 to 2018 to be the peak of Last Day on Earth survival, and for good reason too. During these years, updates were being released almost every single week, making the community excited. Because of this, players would always come back to LDOE to check out the new features and permanent content that would be available after the updates. Second would be the game's uniqueness from other zombie survival mobile games during its time. Let's take a look at Life After. Life After is a 3D zombie survival PUBG-like game, completely different from LDOE, apart from being in the zombie genre. But that's the difference. Life After can be compared to plenty of other mobile games like PUBG because of its many similarities that other popular 3D shooter games have. However, during LDOE's release, there was little competition with mobile games that looked like LDOE at the time. By later years, LDOE's success would take notice, and similar games would be released, like for example Dawn of Zombie Survival. Now I won't go into discussing which game is better, but rather just pointing out how much hype LDOE had during its release. Last but not least, one of the reasons LDOE succeeded would be because of its entertaining content creators and its community. When players were hesitant or didn't know how to play the game, they could go to YouTube and search LDOE, and they would find plenty of guides and tricks about the game. Without the entertaining YouTube guides and helpful community, I don't think LDOE would have been successful in its past years. This time, I also have 3 reasons to what caused LDOE's downfall. First has to be the lack of permanent content in the game. Despite the many updates LDOE had, during the start of Season 1, LDOE has had at the very least 5 updates that have had major permanent content added to the single-player mode of the game. This being Bunker Bravo from Season 3, the port location update, the laboratory update, the settlement, and finally the transport hub update. In the span of 4 years, from Season 1 up to now, the game has had only 5 updates that I would consider having changed the game significantly. The reason why I haven't included the crater as permanent content to the game is because it doesn't change the way the game is played. There is no incentive to play the crater as opposed to playing single player. Ever since version 1.17.9, which was 2 years ago, the crater has never received a major update. Second would be the introduction of seasons. Because of seasonal updates, the game received updates less frequently. And many of these season updates would only feature limited time events. And during the year 2022, the devs stopped adding limited time events every season altogether, causing the game to feel boring and repetitive. Lastly, would have to be the features that haven't been added to the game yet. Back in the early years of the game, the devs would add a blueprint for the helicopter, but it couldn't be crafted because tungsten ore was not in the game. They also added Bunker Charlie, but was inaccessible because you also needed the helicopter. To this day, the helicopter, tungsten ore, and Bunker Charlie have still not been added to the game. Now it's not just these features that have still yet to be released, like for example the oil rig has also been teased to the game. Because these features were teased for so long, some players lost hope that these would ever be released to the game. So, we were able to answer the second question. Now let's go back to the first question: is LDOE still a good game? For me, yes, it is still a good game despite its problems. The reason players are upset with the game, myself included, is because LDOE could be better than its current state. Now on to the final question: what will be Last Day on Earth's future? Personally, it depends. If the devs would release more permanent content even if it's not Bunker Charlie or the helicopter, I'd say it would be a long time until the game dies. And with the release of the transport hub and drone, would say that this is a step in the right direction. However, if the game continues to be stale and repetitive, then I could see the game falling off. Although LDOE has been declining, it is still far from being a dead game. So here is some of my suggestions for LDOE, so that players would have an incentive to play the game. Number 1 is to revamp the crater. More specifically, connect the single-player and multiplayer elements of the game. This doesn't mean to change the whole crater, but rather, add a feature where we could send items from the crater to our single-player mode character so that there is an incentive for players to play in the crater. Number 2 is to update the loot from the motel, basements, Bunker Bravo, and most especially the laboratory. Right now, the loot in these locations is just not worth farming for. And number 3, a new roadmap for LDOE. As of now, the latest roadmap that we've had for LDOE was back in 2019, 4 years ago. It's time for a new and more refined roadmap, so that as players we can see what's next, what upcoming features will be released for Last Day on Earth Survival. These are just a few of my suggestions. If you have any suggestions as well, feel free to comment down below. Even with all the special season updates, events, complicated storyline, and outdated roadmaps, you still can't take away Last Day on Earth's simplicity. Because at its core, Last Day on Earth is just a zombie survival grind game with no end goal, with or without those, and that's what makes LDOE special from other games. Soulless games would not care about the player's experience. But not LDOE. Even if there's not a lot of permanent content and updates, I still feel like LDOE was created by a passionate developer team. And even if it wasn't, LDOE still has a wonderful community. However, there is only so much you can do in Last Day on Earth Survival until it goes repetitive and stale. And that is the entire history of Last Day on Earth Survival. And if you want to see more analytical videos like this, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching.